to the pack like running back just so I know it's real. I be working hard like every day, you don't know how this feel. And I be ballin' hard like every time feel like my name Shaquille. And I be ballin' hard like every time feel like my name is Kobe. And when I'm in the field, I grind so hard, many people can't hold me. I ball like Spider-Man, I ball like Ginobili. Best podcast in the world, that's what them people told me.
Hey, thank you for joining me today. Today I'll be talking with Cheri Naudin. She's been on the show before. She's going to come back and just kind of tell us new developments in the NIL. She's going to talk about her daily routine and things she does on a daily basis to help her clients. And playoffs are coming up, so she's going to tell us about how she follows certain teams and what teams she's going to follow and the things that she does during the playoffs. So get ready for a good show, and we'll see you on the other side. I just wanted to go back. I know you're further along than this right now, but I want to go back to where you said the clearinghouse for students or athletes that were from 2016 to 2020. You said something about that, about going back and paying those guys. Is that, can you
well,
elaborate
that's already
on that?
Active.
Okay.
Yeah, that's already active.
Okay.
So the class of 2016 and 2020 in college have a website that they can go to and apply and say, hey, I was a college athlete and I want to appeal for some of the money. That is there and available for them. So most of them know that. They've gotten emails from the NCAA. They've gotten letters in the mail. There's been many ways for them to, apply for their share of that revenue that was given out. But on the back of that is for the classes after that, because then there was a young man who put a lawsuit in that said, hey, I graduated after that, but you're still using my name, image, and likeness, and I want some money. So that's what's waiting to be heard here in April, and how they're going to settle that against, the female side and the legitimacy of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I have a thought on that one too. If you and I, made a collective and we were boosters or whatever we were, and we collected our money, I would say I should be able to spend my money however I want to spend my money. Maybe I don't want to give it to the girls team, or maybe I don't want it to the lacrosse team. So I think that some of that's going to come out. And there is just so much more to be had. And I think the biggest warning there is it is going to affect each individual, and it's going to affect each university, even with the roster caps. That hasn't even finished, right? They're either opting in or opting out here in April.
So what do you think, with all the muck that's going to go around all of this, what do you think the best way to try to, for an athlete to try to get through that? Is it to just try to not mess around with the collectives, or is it just everything going to be affected?
Everything's going to be effective, because most of it's not going to be their choice. Without that national letter of intent that went through, right? We used to talk about the NLI, right? Not the NIL, and I always mix them up. But without that national letter of intent, it's not tied. All this money and everything is not tied to their performance. It is going to be given out to them as, hey, Tony, I'm giving you this collective thing, and you're going to have to perform the following acts, right? You're going to have to go to social media, or you're going to have to make appearances, or you're going to have to sign autographs. There's going to be things. And this is where I think the immaturity, and they're just, in development as young humans, they're going to have to read their contract, and they're going to have to play to the letter of the law, or the NCAA is going to go, you didn't do your part of the deal. We're not giving you your money. So I wish I was a lawyer, but it is a lot of stuff that I provide back out to my student athletes. And I'm not trying to pitch my company in any ways, but you're going to have an advisor. Yeah. And these, you got to remember, people are interested in their own interest, right? Mm-hmm. And then money's always going to be the devil. You and I were talking about, Easter weekend, the devil was alive and well, right? And that's going to be the money and what people want out of it versus doing what's right for the individual student athlete.
Yeah.
And I think you have to go out and find these advocates or these advisors that are going to be able to give you authentic view of your individual student athlete's talent, the teams they play on, and where they're headed, because then every university is going to be different. Mm-hmm. I had, 87 class of 2025s go through signing day this last season. And the contracts that came out, Tony, man, there's one on my desk, and I asked the mom if I could have a copy of it. it says that at this particular Division I private university that she cannot collect any NILs and keep it until she pays back what they've given her.
So what do you mean what they've already given? So she
Yeah,
has
so
to.
let's just say for easy numbers, right? If it's a $80,000 school, $50,000 school, let's use 50 so I can do simple math. They give her $25,000 in financial aid. There's no more athletic scholarship. So let's say they gave her $25,000. They say in this contract that you are not allowed to earn more than or anything up to that 25,000 has to be reported to them, and you don't get to keep it until that 25,000 is paid back.
Wow. So it's really up
Now,
to the university how they write the contract. Is that what you're saying?
150%. It is a financial agreement within the university, and they are not all the same.
Okay. So what I'm kind of getting from this is the athletes not only need someone that's going to promote them to get the scholarship or the offer. After that, they're going to need someone like you or an attorney to guide them through signing whatever contracts available. Is that right?
Yes. And I just did a TikTok on this one this morning because I had a dad call. I say with my athletes till they graduate college. And he said, hey, what's going to happen? My kid had a little bit of a review each month with the coach, and the coach says, don't worry. You're going to be one of my 25. And I'm like, well, they can't really say that until they give you a contract. And the dad's like, what? Because this is that class of 24 or 23 or 22 that's in it before these national letter of intents went away, right? So it'll be interesting to see if that national letter of intent that they signed is still in process. And if so, does it get replaced by a financial agreement, or how that 25 scholarship is going to come out? So in girls softball, volleyball, any of them, they have given us a particular roster amount. Well, that roster amount, everybody is believing that is a full ride for those 25 rosters. Each division, each conference, and then each institution has the right to do what they want with it, right? You can't tell Baylor University you have to have 25 full ride scholarships.
Yeah.
They're going to make that decision whether or not they can do that in a non-revenue generating sport, right? So this is bigger than just athletics and your talent, your ability to play, right? Now you have to become a valuable product. I'm an ex-marketing person from sales and marketing in telecom. And we used to look at the amount it costs you to lose the kid too. We called it churn. Like, how much does it cost you to lose a kid and go get a new kid versus doing the right purchase up front and, nourishing that product through the system. But that product is not now tied to you in any way, nor are you tied to them in any way.
Yeah. Wow.
And let me insert here on Baylor, because I just saw this on TikTok, and I don't know if it's true or not. I am a TikToker, but I saw that the entire basketball team for Baylor University is in the portal. They're either not there anymore or in the portal, and it was because a bunch of seniors graduated and then the rest vacated. What are we doing? Every year we're redrafting, we're re-rostering. That's what it looks like.
That makes it ugly. I mean, to set that precedent, that makes it ugly for a team to be able to do that. And of course, it's a copycat league, a copycat world. What schools that are, below the rank of Baylor are going to do that or try to do that. That's kind of a scary thing,
Well, we saw it happen last year. I won't rat out the Pac-12 team because Pac-12's not there anymore. But man, one kid pulled the string and they all splintered. And they didn't all splinter, but a bunch of the big names splintered. And, just because they were afraid with this big star leaving that they weren't going to have much of a team. And as college coaches, my daughter's a 10-year, a professional Division II head coach. And man, they don't have this experience to, know what to do or how to do it. They're softball coaches, they are in the business of softball. Now these softball coaches, or any coach, has to be in the business of negotiation, business value, gain and loss. I mean, there's just so many things that they have to do beyond it. And I don't even believe that the administrators are skilled at that. These sports administrators are human resource type managers. They are not, it's going to be an agent type environment. And I had somebody else even predict it's going to be that academy level of soccer. It's going to be a academy level or a division amongst the haves and the have-nots. Like, man, it's going to be Big Ten and SEC, and then everybody else.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of what another gentleman that's in your profession has said, that Big Ten and SEC are pretty much running the NCAA, which was a surprise to me. But if you just really look at the track record, then it really shouldn't surprise you too much.
It's not even track record; it's money.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
and especially it's even more evident in our sport, man. Oklahoma and Texas, two of the biggest stars in softball. And I don't just do softball, but obviously I'm pretty famous in the softball world. But when those two went over to the SEC, man, there's a rude awakening. Now the SEC just got even tougher. And man, unfortunately, people are going to lose jobs because they're being put on notice that they need to win because they need to earn the revenue, but they're filling stadiums like never before. The attendance is up, the money's up, so the model is there. But there's only a few that probably create a revenue.
Yeah. Can you tell me who some of the upcoming stars are that are going to be entering the collegiate level pretty soon?
Yes. So my company has been in business 10 years. We have 662 student athletes that have committed and been in college and graduated. Right now, I have over 300 playing in the sport. Mostly softball. I do have baseball, a lot of baseball, and then I do have some football. And then I take each other individual one-on-one through their sport. And they're usually referred to me, but I do look for advocates that can be specialists in a sport across the country, to bring that in, right? It's a lot harder than people think it is to do what we do because we do stay with them till they graduate college. So incoming, the class of 2026, I already have 33 committed. We've got, a big star going to Baylor and several other universities. I usually don't put their names out because, it's one of those things. I got to ask permission to, do that. And I'm not trying to promote them to get additional offers, right? And in girls' sports, they usually are evaluated for 2 years before their opening day, and then they get the opportunity to engage in recruiting conversation. But within a season, they usually commit, or they didn't find what they're wanted for. A lot of people say, well, I'm holding out for something better. Well, the best comes first in my experience, right? UCLA is not holding back until, summer to finish, their top level athletes, because the top level athletes have a lot of opportunity straight up front. So that's a very small fraction of the 2026 class. What we've seen is it really slowed down because they don't know what their money is going to be until May, when the portal opens back up and season has finished playing. So I would say your top level, your elite level athletes have either come off the board or they already know where they're going and they're just waiting to decide. And most parents don't understand that. They think their kid is elite because they don't necessarily play at the elite level. They play at an elite level in their community, but they're not necessarily on the national elite stage. So then 26 comes in and they're done. But the coaches this summer are going to have one foot in finishing 26s, and they've already been all over the 27s for 2 years. And I have a couple high profile. I've got a shortstop who's the daughter of a major leaguer. That's very, very talented. I've got a pitcher that is probably one of the top in her class in the country, and both of those come from Texas. But I've got, student athletes across the country. Right now, my high profile kids, one big hitter at LSU, a big middle infielder at Georgia. I've got two at Mizzou. I mean, they're decorated. Like, I turn on the TV and I get giddy because I feel so proud. And of course, it's not me. I didn't coach them. The travel ball coaches are very invested in our sport. They don't get seen in high school. And yet, there's some clubs that'll bring a coach out, just to, I call it more fanfare than anything, because most college coaches aren't going to waste their time to come to a high school event in the girls' side of the sport, because our leagues are not very talented as opponents, right? So it's more, I call it show and go, just saying, hey, we got you, girl. We're invested in you as a person. We're watching your other sport, or, we want to see you stand out in your high school environment. But it's more showboating than it is, hey, we're recruiting you. And it happens, but it's, one particular club that does that, that thinks that that's adding value to the particular student athlete. I think it's setting them up for some disappointment, because just because that school is coming, one doesn't mean that that school's getting that kid, or that they actually come to the table for that kid.
Yeah.
So I honestly think a lot of parents and a lot of travel ball coaches prop their kids up to expect something that doesn't necessarily happen. Mm-hmm. I got 12 phone calls last year on September 2nd from big named kids on big clubs that didn't get what they thought they were going to get. And they weren't seeing through the fanfare that, stuff that their coaches say, well, that coach was on my sideline. Well, yeah, they were looking at this kid over there. So then they blame the coach, saying, well, you were promoting that kid more than my kid. And none of that is real, but it's so emotional, and there's unsaid expectations. And, the best advice I could give to parents is stop self-promoting your child where you think they should play, because you're going to disappoint your student athlete. There's some over the years, my heart still bleeds for some of them. There's some in college now that never lived up to what their parents put out there, and even convinced college coaches to put them on rosters. And then they didn't do what was expected or what was pitched to them. And then they blame the college coach. Man, if you haven't seen TikTok where the kids went after coaches, those aren't bad coaches. Most of them. There might be a coach that did some bad things, but I expect that the system, because they report to an athletic department that has rules and regulations, but they come to TikTok instead. Mm-hmm. And it was really, if you go look at their stats, it usually tells the story, right?
Yeah. Which colleges do you normally deal with, or have you dealt with the most?
So this is a great question, and actually what people's perception of recruiting is. Now, I've not only coached kids that have played at some of the top schools in the country. I coached a kid that was NCAA Player of the Year. But this is the part I don't believe that the institutions tell you the right story. They tell a kid, oh, well, just go look at your major and then go to a camp and then voila, you get to choose. It is so the opposite. Number one, I always ask the parents, what did you want to do when you were 15 or 16 years old, right? Nobody knows what they want to major in. And even the college coaches will ask on a conversation, and they might be a junior at this point. Well, what do you want to study? I mean, their faces go, I want to study softball. I want to study football. That's all their focus is, right? And so I think what I did is I flipped the process. I try to figure out where their talent is valuable first, because the name of the university is irrelevant until we know where they can play. We can target the big schools all day long, but if they're not showing up, they're not engaging, man, I wouldn't waste a dime on the camp until I knew what layer of the sport my kid belonged in, right? So my pitch to the parents is I'll save you money in the process, helping you understand the value of your talent. Now, when we get them younger, we can do some advising of, hey, you need a wide receiver coach, or hey, who's your quarterback coach? To speak football terms, right? I make sure that they're training with the right people and you're getting the most out of them. But at some point, the parents have to get off the Power 4 conference, NIL, 5-star athlete train, and realize where their kids can play. And then I do a more targeted approach to figuring out where they can play and targeting them directly that way. Mm-hmm. A lot of people believe that they can just go put their highlights up on social media and they get recruited. I would tell you, only the coaches that are, I hate to say this word, but desperate or trying to get more out of social media, maybe find that, diamond in the rough, but it's what we call happenstance recruiting. That's not direct recruiting. Mm-hmm. Direct recruiting is directly going to the colleges and directly to those coaches. Well, some coaches don't answer email, correct? And that's NCAA's only process. So the coaches kind of divert it and pass it. And that's where the relationships come into play. You've got to have somebody, whether you're a high school coach for football or an advocate out there specifically helping you. Otherwise, man, in baseball, it is who you know and what you know. And every travel ball coach was a minor leaguer, a major leaguer, and they have their connections. But to then get somebody on top of it that is somebody like us that independently is doing more of a direct marketing approach versus a happenstance approach. Okay. And man, some of the coaches are funny with social media. They call it barfing. And then vomiting on social media, and then you're giving them more than they need to have, right? So if you're out there saying, "Oh, I just got my second offer from, a Division 2," well, the Division 1s are going to cut out and go away because they're not discounting that Division 2 coach is going to take some 5-star kid. They're going to cut, thanks for the notice, kid, and they take them off the list and they
Wow.
go to somebody else, right?
Yeah. And that's one of
And
the things I
that's what
see
I
so
see.
much every day. And I know they're proud of it, and that's their intent, is to be proud of what they did. But I guess they're not looking at it from the opposite side, on the coach's side. So, like what you just mentioned, they'll kind of go away or have a different
It,
opinion.
Yeah, it's from the marketing side. Like you're giving your hand, you're giving your poker hand right up front to help these coaches divert off of your kid, right? So if your kid has some traction, they're getting that traction because of performance or numbers or metrics, right? The speed, the size, the power. Those are things that you can't lie about because we can all see it
Mm-hmm.
in a video in 30 seconds. I can tell you your kid's not running a 4 or 5, okay? Yeah, I can tell. And I
Mm-hmm.
I don't do football full time every day, right? And that's the thing is that parents believe. I even saw one dad speeding up his video
I've seen
in
that
order to
too.
make the kid look like she was running faster. I'm like, parents, those of us that are professionals, you can't maneuver and manipulate the system. You're actually hurting your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that message I usually put on TikTok, and I had one guy go, "Oh man, you're so hard on these parents and these coaches." And I'm like, "Look, I don't want that parent. I don't want those kids, because you're not being authentic. You're not telling the truth, and at some point, it's going to hurt your kid.
Yeah.
It's not helping
Mm-hmm.
your kid." And so I think the sooner the parents get out of the way, and God love them, they pay the bills. They pay me, right? So I have to be kind here, but the soonest you can inhale and exhale and realize that your business is your business. I told a dad the other day it'd be like me walking into the operating room and becoming an eye surgeon. I mean, it's just bigger, and you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
find people that that you can trust through the process instead
Yeah.
of trying to push your kid into a place they can't play.
Yeah. Well, having said all of this about what you do for your athletes, and I can tell you genuinely care, but what is your daily routine? Like when you get up in the morning, I see your computer's booted up and everything, but what do you actually, how do you actually get through the day? What do you do step by step? If you could kind of go through that.
I am very systematic, and I am the queen of time management, multitasking. And I think I work probably at least a 12 to 14-hour day, not always at my desk, but a typical day would be, yeah, I have each one of my student athletes has a spreadsheet in my drive with who they're targeting. We share it, so I see what they're doing. I do what I
Mm-hmm.
do. I contact coaches depending on the grad year, the talent level, and where the coaches are at, because right now a lot of our coaches are in season. They're not necessarily answering
Mm-hmm.
emails or phone calls. I joke my black book is worth millions. I have people call, "Hey, can I get so and so's cell number?" And no, thanks for calling. And I'm really nice about it, but I'm not so nice about it. I spent 10 years building that credibility to get that phone call,
Yeah.
and I don't always get every phone call back either. They call back when it's a hit, right? When it's a match.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part where talent doesn't lie. We can't fudge them. They might be on the lane. Like I had one SEC school last year. They're super secret camps that they get invited to when right before September 1st. And I said, "Hey, where's this kid fit in your top 10?" He goes, "Well, she's on the border." And I said, "Then why would you be having her at this camp?" He says, "Well, we think she's super athletic. We want to see if she can, bust through the top 10." I said, "Thank you so much." And I told the parent exactly that, right? The dad said, "I think it's worth a try." They went out there. He said, "Man, I could see it." He goes, and this is a guy who runs a very famous Facebook page
Mm-hmm.
for coaches and sport. And he said, "I saw it with my own eyes, Cheri. I saw exactly who they were targeting, and I saw where my kids fit." And he said, "That's hard to swallow as a parent."
Yeah.
But he said,
Yeah.
"Man, I just drove 8 hours to watch my kid be told no." And he said that was more humiliating than just listening ahead of time and making that decision for your parent. Like, look, yeah, she might make it, but she's on the border. And then if she gets there as a freshman, are you really going to play? Is it going to be the experience that they, deserve
Mm-hmm.
in their 4-year time frame, right? And this kid committed to what I call a regional softball player. This team usually goes to regionals, and they're going to come up big, and this kid will be a player. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of advice that I give them.
So in that situation like that, what you said, what the player may not break the top 10 or whatever, and that coach still wanted that player to come there. Do you see? I see it mostly on the football side. These mega camps that they go to, and some of them just seem like they're just money grabs. Have you seen that?
Oh.
That's the case.
Yes. I've been to some. I love going to football, and I'm a
Yeah.
tiny little person, so I look pretty funny when I'm out there. But, I love it. My dad played football in college in the 60s. So, we grew up around football. I love it. I would love to have more football students, helping them through the process, because there's 100 boys at every school. And, parents all think their kid is that 5-star athlete because they get a little, max preps notice or, local press. That's great. But that doesn't dictate that you get to drive that decision. We're not fooling college coaches. It's their job to do that. But yes, I stood at a local high school near me last year, and I went, this is a no-brainer. There was like 3 kids that could actually play football at the next level. And yet there was kids from all over the country. I talked to a dad from Florida. I was talking to a dad from Kansas. They're not bad kids. They're functional high school football players. But I mean, parents, do you not see the difference? Your kid needs to be that one kid, and that one kid, I'm going to tell you right now, if I followed his name, he's probably not a 5-star athlete. He's probably playing Division I somewhere, but they're hosting hundreds and hundreds of camps. And most people know this in the female side. My daughter's a head coach. They don't make a lot of money. They have an amazing amount of degrees, and they don't make a lot of money. So they host camps in order to pay their assistants, pay their grad assistants. Sport is a heavily underpaid situation, right? Because everybody would like to be there.
Right.
I think some of the NILs and some of the, roster caps should guarantee some money for these college coaches too, in all layers. Because I don't think that parents understand that they're paying for their salaries, right? Yeah. My favorite story is everybody wants to play at let's say Duke or Clemson, somewhere on the East Coast, and we're in Texas. They put their kids on a camp, and I love both those coaches, by the way. My daughter played for John Rittman when she was at Kansas. And man, you'd love that opportunity to go to that camp, but you're putting them on a plane. Mom or dad are going from Dallas to, the East Coast. They're paying several $100s, like close to $400 on most of these camps. And they're showing up with 200 kids on the field. And then you call for feedback, and they're like, what kid? Who? What? Who? Because you got to stand out. And if you're a standout, you're not going to that camp because they already know you, and they've already had you in their super secret camp, and they're having a special camp that they want you to go to that you didn't get invited to.
Yeah.
These are not camps that are listed on the website. They're not advertised in mail. The biggest falsity, and I'm going to switch gears on you here, is when they hold up this mail they get, and they go, look at this mail I get. It's just marketing material about the university. They're only allowed to send you one, and they're sending it over and over again. So are you outing out the college for continuing to send you material? Well, it's academic material, but they're holding it up, acting like they're getting recruited, and it's marketing material for the university.
Yeah.
I don't understand how parents can't see through that, but they'll keep going to camp. Well, the coach knows my name, and yeah, they know your name because mom and daddy keep paying that $800. That's pretty nice,
Yeah.
So, and it happens. I think the fees in football are even higher than in the female.
Yeah, they are. They are. And like you said, the amount of kids that are there are higher as well, unless you like the super secret camps. And I'll admit, last year we did the camp tour, and that was to really get my son out there and everything. This year we're committed to a college, and we're done. Even if we weren't committed, we're not going to do that again. That was a brutal thing to do.
So that's interesting. If committed kids are still going to camps, I don't believe that's an ethical thing to do.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of parents doing that. Well, we want something better. You think something better is coming at a camp after you committed?
Yeah.
I would take them off my list and say, I'm no longer representing you, because once we commit, we stay committed. And then there's a next section of life that you have to get through to be able to play when you get there. Right. So I think that's interesting. And then, you have to decide where your money spend is for your dream. I tell a lot of kids, man, go where you're valued. And then if you think you got missed and you're still NFL or MLB bound, well, then show it. Put it on the court, put it on the field, put it on the football field.
Yeah.
Put it out there. There's plenty of stories about that D2 kid that makes it to the NFL. My daughter went to Central Arkansas. I know a boy went, after to Major League Baseball from there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you can't plan your recruiting waiting for, what is it? In our own area, can't even think of it. The horned frog.
Oh, TCU. Yeah.
You can't wait. Yeah, you can't wait for them to show up if they haven't shown up. They know the layers. They know the travel ball teams. They know the results. You're not fooling them. You're actually fooling yourselves. And let me share another thing that you started with, taking your kids. We have a lot of people. I did it myself. I got my kid in a car and took her to universities and let her see them. I honestly think we're setting our kids up for disappointment because they're dreaming, right? They're young kids. They're 15, 16, 17 years old. They're dreaming of walking around this fancy campus. And then the school that comes for them isn't so fancy. And I had a dad in the class of 25 say, man, it's just not her dreams. And we don't want to go there. We only want to go here. But what he was really saying is we want the D1.
Yeah.
And then he commits to a lower level D1, not using my services. And they're all hyping that up. That's not a D1 experience. And it's the actual opposite of what they were directing me to do for them. So you got to be honest. You got to be honest about yourself. You got to be honest about the why. You got to be honest about what it is in return you're expecting. And if your talent lives up to that expectation. And a lot of parents, it's hard. I was that parent too, man. My kid finally said, Mom, KU loves me. Why don't you let me go to Kansas?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a great experience. What were we thinking,
Right. Well, it's funny that you said go to a place where you're valued, and the place that my son's committed to. I mean, we feel like just by the attention that they've shown him by coming to the school and everything, the amount of coaches that were there, we were just like, we pulled him to the side after. We was like, you don't have to, but you should commit to this school because can't you see what they've done and what they're trying to achieve to get you there? And he was like, oh, yeah, you're right, Dad. You're right. So he went ahead and committed that next day after they came, and we're like, the coaches are great. They're communicating, and they make him feel valued. And so why else would we do anything?
And what we've done, Tony, on the backside is we created a decision grid, and each kid's decision grid is different, right? And so that's what we learn along the way. That's why we take 8th and 9th graders, because we want to take them through the process. So we get to know them personally, and we can help them create a decision grid. And then that way they don't get wowed by the emotion or the attention, right? Because some coaches are real good on the front end of giving that kind of attention. And on the back end, they're like, all right, son, hustle. Oh, by the way, you're on the bench for 2 seasons because we didn't investigate the depth of talent that's in front of them, or how they recruit. Are they all putting portal hoppers right on top of you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to consider in that. So we literally get them one-on-one on the phone and talk about the decision grid before they decide. But my husband's been a very infamous travel ball coach for many years. He's won 4 national titles. And he says, your dream school is the school your dreams come true at.
Right. Exactly.
Isn't that an aha?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I do want to ask you, I know you mentioned you said you do 12 and 14-hour days. When is the last time you actually took a vacation that wasn't a working vacation?
What? Is there such a thing? Okay, so this is funny. But my husband works for Coca-Cola, and they were sponsors of the NCAA Final Four. That was a vacation.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we went, and we had the time of our life. We got toured. We got to actually go on the court, little old me trying to make a shot. I threw it overhand, and I hit the backboard. Yeah. But, we made it a vacation out of sport. It's what our family does.
Yeah.
We
kind of do the
same. My husband and my son have day jobs, but yeah. And that's because it's what we do. I had a very ignorant young man say to me the other day, oh, when are you going to be done? I mean, when are you going to retire? I'm like, son, I said, listen, and that's my next podcast I'm videoing with a young lady, is, this is what we do. This is our passion. This is what we love. We enjoy this. We're not trying to, what he's doing, trying to push people out because he wants to be something he's not yet. And I'm like, son, best advice I can give you is go be relevant before you try to crash, the haters, right? The people that are above you doing what you want to do. You can't move them out because you think you're better. Go be relevant. Go do the work.
Yeah.
Invest the time, create your own credibility instead of trying to overthrow somebody else's credibility. I don't get that society shift that I've seen, because I spent 28 years in corporate America. I didn't try to run my vice president out of the company. I just went out and hustled my results and added value and tried to learn from them, and then brought my own personality into the deal, right?
Yeah.
This next generation, I don't think has experienced that.
Yeah. Well, it's a learning curve that they'll have to gather. And I don't think it's that what you mentioned, the work ethic and things like that, I don't think that's changing. It has changed a little bit, but I don't think it's going to change to where what you're saying, that you can't overlook that. Like you say, you have to be relevant. And that's been a constant that I've been hearing, going through this journey of starting this podcast. I've been listening to a lot of people talking about it, and they say just produce your content, be relevant, and stay in your lane. It's eventually going to happen if you keep it up.
That is exactly the truth.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane, reduce your content. Don't show your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give them more than they need. I mean, the art of negotiation. That's another book.
Yeah.
My other favorite one is Thanks for the Feedback. That's a book called Thanks for the Feedback.
Oh, yeah.
My own adult child said the other day, hey, that was a great read, because the biggest aha is you don't have to own what they say, but you need to be appreciative of the feedback that somebody's investing that in you.
Yeah.
And I think, I think it's changing. I think this 4 years above the 26s were very victimized. They were very, beat up, and everything was versus, hey, thanks for the feedback. And not owning it personally, but owning the behavior or owning the results. And I think we are seeing a big shift in the 26 class and below, that there's a little bit more accountability because it just got harder.
Yeah.
Getting to be a college student athlete just got really hard. Coming out of high school into college just got really tough.
Yeah. All right. So I've got one last question for you. And I know the softball and baseball playoffs are coming up soon, near the end of this month. Who are some of the top teams in Texas that you have heard of? All divisions.
My gosh. So you're going to love this, but I'm probably not the right answer for this, because, again, in the female side of the sport, the high school sport is driven by the top pitcher. And then you have to have a few other kids that get on the roster that can actually support you on the offensive side. And it's very controversial. There's lots of people accusing each other of cheating. And on the female side, you could hit or miss. Both daughters played together in high school, and one was a college-bound soccer player and one was a softball player, but they had both played. We had a shortstop go to Baylor. We had her sister go as an outfielder to Texas Tech, and we had another kid go to La Tech. We couldn't get out of a regular game because we didn't have next level pitching, right?
Oh, yeah.
So and then you've got the layers. You've got the 6A, 5A, 4A, and it's 1 week longer than everybody else, maybe 2 weeks longer than everybody else. And a lot of people don't invest their emotion in it. The freshmen do, and then they realize it ain't so perfect. But I honor, like Reedy High School. I have a big shortstop going to Nebraska there. And we know the head coach from when she played with my daughter, and they just, clinched their district. I think that's honorable because I know how they built that school. Mm-hmm. So there's certain schools like that I love, that I'm invested in. I've had a couple kids come out of Denton Guyer. I've got a senior there this year going to Creighton. They're all over, right? And it's different conferences, different divisions, and it's hard to win state because I'll tell you right now, Houston's population is bigger than our population, so it's hard to come out with a national title. Yeah. You've got one of the most decorated. I didn't represent this young lady, but Maddie Doty is at Grandview, and she is a Texas commit. She's been that kid since she was 10. She's just phenomenal kid, phenomenal human being. Grandview will win something because she's very decorative. And then this is when I'm not calling them cheaters by any means, disclaimer, but you'll see a lot of kids move into those neighborhoods in order to play with kids like that. Yeah. Because they want that experience. So
that happens a lot in football too, and maybe a lot more in softball, but it's not as high profile. So, I mean, I'm sure you know of all of that. that goes on.
My son had played baseball with the Murray family, so we watched all of that happen. Allen High School, I live right near them. I actually represent an Allen baseball player. So yes, it happens everywhere, and that's the unfortunate part. Again, parents manipulating the process in order to help their kids excel, and I don't think that it happens to their benefit as much as they think it does.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered my next follow-up question, but I was going to ask you, where do you go to watch baseball or softball just on your own? If you just go to watch someone, I guess it would be Allen, since you're close
to
them.
Is.
Okay.
Yeah. It is at the club level. And so I have gone out to high school games more so this year than ever. So people are like, whoa, what are you doing here? Because it's not a good use of your time. And that's why the college coaches don't show up. It's not a good use of their time when you're going to see one kid and you've got 2 squads of 18 on each team. So it's not necessarily a good use of your time. But yes, I've been to Allen games. I've been to Princeton High because they played Prosper and I had 3 kids on Prosper. It just depends. And I always say local. I went all the way to Burleson because I've got 3 kids on Burleson. So I definitely am well decorated in the high school scene, but I usually wait till they get to the playoffs and then, how it's looking, if I go at all, because again, I'm spending more time calling college coaches, finding out what their needs are, making sure that they're getting enough marketing and enough exposure and attention. And if you go to my website, which is collegiatesportsadvocate.com, you can click on the events page and see where the top level athletes are going across the country. And that's where our college coaches follow. They follow the player, they follow the team, and then they follow the event. And they're not going to show up at a local event here. They might because they get paid to work at camp, right? There's your shenanigans, but they're not really recruiting everybody that's at that event. So you really need someone to help you maneuver and manipulate the journey with professional insights. And a lot of people put their hands in a travel ball coach's pocket. And my husband's a travel ball coach, and I think it's a dangerous thing to do, because if your travel ball coach has not been in the journey before and has proven results, a lot of them say they do, but they don't, then you're counting on their word, and you're going to figure out when it's too late that their word wasn't very well documented. There's a lot of people that wear a brand, but the brand is doing the work somewhere else and it's not really happening in your local market. So there's just so many things they need to look at. But there's 51,000 registered softball coaches.
Wow.
So they're not getting the attention of the college coaches. They might have 1 or 2 relationships, but that doesn't mean that they pick you. So you really have to get into the numbers game, in baseball especially. And we do have a great baseball advocate here. He's our national director. He was the Reedy high school baseball coach for 20 years. And he's now a local realtor because he likes doing baseball. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Cheri, I thank you and I appreciate your time. It's always good to talk to you. You have a lot of information to give us, and I wish you success. I know you will have success, but maybe one day I'll see you around somewhere. But thanks again for coming on.
Invite me to your son's football game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Guyer High School. So we'll going through spring ball here in a week or next week. And then after that, I'll send you the schedule and, make it if you can.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thank you for having me. I appreciate your time and honor and your investment in understanding the sport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a good day and weekend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, that was a great show. And I want to thank Cheri for coming on again. Thank you for all the insight, all the knowledge that you've given us, and some of the athletes that are going to take advantage of that. So if you want to contact Cheri, all the information will be in the description below. So leave me a comment. Let me know how you enjoyed this show. Give Cheri a call, contact her and see what's going on with her. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good day. We'll see y'all.